Hello all, welcome to part 2A of the scenario-based hacking video series. In this video, we will look at how to break into a machine which has no patches, no antivirus, that is behind a NAT. So here is the scenario. The victim is not patched, however, there is a NAT device in front of the victim. And this is where a bit of ingenuity will be required. So what is going to be the setup for this scenario? Well, we have our host machine in which we have two VMs up. The first VM is the attacker machine running backtrack. The second VM is the victim machine running Windows XP. Now the attacker machine is basically connected to the Ethernet using bridged access and actually gets an address directly from the Ethernet, which is DHCP, using a DHCP technique. Now, the victim machine, which is Windows XP, is actually going through a virtual NAT device provided by VirtualBox and then is connected to the Ethernet. So, this NAT device provides an internal address to the VM, and this NAT device is what? Does a network address translation for all the requests coming and going to the VM. Right, to the victim machine. Now let's briefly look at how this setup looks like. So this is our attacker machine which is running backtrack, and this has an IP address 192.168.1.2 as you can see, and this is our victim machine which is a Windows XP machine, and this has an internal IP address 10.0.2.15 and is behind the NAT, right? But this can access the backtrack machine directly. However, the backtrack machine cannot access the Windows machine because it is behind the NAT directly, right? Now we've logged into the backtrack machine using PuTTY, and let's go back. So this is what the scenario is. The victim machine, attacker, victim through a NAT, and the attacker directly connected to the Ethernet using a bridged interface. So how do we proceed? Well, whenever a victim is using NAT, it is not possible for the attacker to reach the victim directly with just an IP address. Hence, we cannot run Nmap, Metasploit or any of these tools directly by using the victim IP address. So what this means is typically the victim would need to reach out to the attacker first. And this is where this is a typical client-side attack scenario. Now there are multiple techniques using which an attacker can still compromise the victim. The first being browser-based exploits, which is what we will look at in this demo. And I think now it might be more clear why we call this SBH2A and not SBH2, because A is actually just browser-based exploits. In the next video, where we will look at SPH2B and 2C, etc., we will also use other social engineering techniques like sending infected PDFs or other executables, or even use the social engineering toolkit. So we'll come to that in later videos. In this video, we will look at browser-based exploits. Now, what does one have to do? Well, an attacker has to create a malicious site which is going to actually host all these browser-based exploits. Now, when the victim visits this malicious website, the attacker will try various exploits on the victim's browser. And once the victim's browser is exploited, then he would probably go ahead and use some sort of a reverse connection, typically a Metapreter reverse TCP payload, right, using which he would have the victim connect back to him. Once the victim connects back to him and establishes a stable connection, from there on the attacker can tunnel through that connection and do various things on the victim, right? So let's get on with the demo. So this is the victim, here is the attacker machine. Now let's go ahead and launch browser-based exploits. This is actually an auxiliary module under auxiliary server browser autopon. Let's look at the options. lhost is the attacker